Did you know that 9 out of 10 kids play video games?
I won! Radical! I won! We're pro gamer now! We're pro gamer now! We're pro gamer now! We're pro gamer now!
But did you also know that video games cause violence?
No! We're the Hex family!
It's time to play. For real.
No!
Stop your children from playing video games today.
Now that's a pro gamer move.
Before it's too late.
Video game violence has been a hot-button topic of debate essentially since its conception. The very first instance I could find of controversy was in 1976 with an arcade game titled Death Race. The objective of the game was to run over as many humanoid characters as you could in the given time limit. If that kind of thing disturbed 1976, I can only imagine what they would think if they saw the kind of games that we were producing now. One of the most famous cases, Mortal Kombat, is almost solely responsible for the formation of the ESRB, the pioneers of that nifty little stamp you see on every physical game that you purchase. Grand Theft Auto has seen its own set of lawsuits, and speaking about it could be its own video alone. But today we're going to talk about one of the lesser spoken about controversial titles, Postal. A game that allows you to be as twisted as you want to be, or don't be. Find out today why this game with an extremely large cult following is banned in several countries, and if you think it's deserving, in today's episode of Behind the Thing. The aptly named studio behind Postal calls themselves Running with Scissors. The company was founded in 1996 in Tucson, Arizona by Vincent Desidero Jr., more commonly known as Vince Desi. According to Desi himself, when the studio was first conceived, their intention was to make a game as outrageous as possible, and boy did they. The Postal series has grown quite the large fan base, but is still relatively unknown in the gaming community. Despite lawsuits and bans in other countries, Postal is still going strong today. The way its crude humor subtly holds up a mirror to some of the darkest part of society is part of why the series has grown such a large following. Join me as we dig deeper into one of video games' most controversial series. The first Postal was released back in 1997 on the PC. It was a 3D top-down sort of isometric shooter. The plot centered around a man simply known as the Postal Dude. Our friend the Dude had just been evicted from his home, and he also believes that the nearby United States Air Force Base is spraying poison gas into the air, and he, of all people, is immune to the gas. So, our friend the Dude takes it upon himself to save his town and massacre his way to the Air Force to stop them from continuing to pollute the air. Okay. The gameplay was rather simple. Kill said number of hostiles in each area, and that's it. You could also go after civilians, but it was completely optional. But the fact that Postal didn't necessarily discourage you from killing innocents, and maybe even encourage it a little bit, is the beginning of Postal's questionable content. The game climaxes in what might be the series' most extreme cases to date, at least in my opinion. At the peak of the dude's mental break, his inner demon convinces him that he needs to cleanse an entire elementary school. Holy shit. Luckily for the dude, and the children, his weapons don't have any effect, and soon after he collapses, it's revealed that the latter was just a sort of mirage from a mental break suffered from the stress of losing his home. Wow, that is darker than most of the most extreme horror games that are out here to date. However, the rest of the series would take a more of comedic turn, especially with its sequel, which would soon become the fan base's most deservingly revered title.
You ain't coming in here before you finish all those errands.
Yeah, whatever.
Postal 2. Released back in 2003 on the PC, the game has become the series' most infamous yet popular titles, and for many reasons. Now, you've got to have a very specific type of humor to be a Postal fan. Let me give you an example. My first experience with Postal was seeing gameplay where a player kicked in someone's door and then relieved himself in the homeowner's mouth while being confronted by them. 14-year-old me was instantly sold. So, as you can see, a game that has a command to relieve yourself however you see fit could draw itself a bit of negative attention. That, stacked on top of the game's extreme violence and very black and blue sense of humor, found the game banned in over 5 countries. Yes, that's right. Postal 2 was at one point banned in 5 countries, but more on that later. Postal 2 changed things up a bit from its predecessor and was played from a first-person perspective. Again, we controlled a character simply known as the Postal Dude, although it's unclear if it's the same Postal Dude from the previous entry. The dude still has a rather rough life, both professionally and personally.
You ain't coming in here.
The game is broken up into 5 days, Monday through Friday, and is played in a small sandbox-ish type map. And our missions are basically just a dude's errands. I mean, the game's first day, Monday, you're tasked with getting your paycheck, cashing your paycheck, and buying milk. Yep, that's really it. Only our friend the dude has to have some of the worst luck I have ever seen. While picking up his paycheck from his job at a game development studio, it is attacked by a group of armed protesters. Now, Postal 2's main tagline is, remember, it's only as violent as you are. So you're left with one of two choices. Either run and get the F out of Dodge, or blast your way through every last protester. And that's one of the most ironic parts of the game, in my opinion. The fact that the game gives you the tools to do some absolutely horrific and outrageous things, but it's completely your choice. While given it is hard, you can practically complete the entire game without ever picking up a weapon or having to relieve yourself. And while it might be a bit harder, you can do it. So given the fact that pacifism is an obtainable route, means that every time you resort to using violence, it's all on you. I could probably do an entire video on Postal 2 alone, and we've only seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the interactive controversy known as Postal 2. But now, it's time to move on to an entry of the series that most fans would like to forget. Postal 3, released once again on the PC in 2011. However, this time, there was an Xbox 360 and even a PlayStation 3 version announced, but they were soon cancelled for reasons that will become more obvious a little later on. The gameplay of Postal 3 was more of the same stuff we've seen in Postal 2, violence and vulgarity galore. Postal 3 starts right where Postal 2 left off, with the dude destroying his entire hometown with a nuclear bomb. Wow. Anyway, the dude finds himself in the neighboring city of Catharsis, except his nuclear destruction of an entire city caused a bit of a local economic crisis, and now he can't even afford a tank of gas to get his way out of town. Boy, can I relate to you there, buddy. Sounds like regular old Postal, right? This time, however, Running with Scissors decided to go with a third-person perspective, complete with a cover system and regenerating health, where, in my opinion, Postal 3's problems first begin. The game sounded pretty interesting on paper. There was a branching storyline giving the players one of two paths to choose, one being the good path, which entailed you with joining the local police department, and then there was the insane path, where you could choose to work with the city's mayor and your good old Uncle Dave for some good old-fashioned organized crime. Whatever path you choose, however, the game plays out in a somewhat linear format. The insane path is a bit shorter and easier to complete than the game's good path, so what went wrong? Not only was the game loaded with bugs that made the game practically unplayable, the game had also gone through 4 different development teams, and along the way lost that Postal shine that most players grew to love. The game was so poorly received, in fact, that Running with Scissors actually disowned the game entirely and completely removed it from their stores, instead encouraging players to buy previous titles in the series, saying for a quote, "more superior product for less money." Boy, talk about damage control.
This is Houston. Say again, please?
Houston, we have a problem.
Now let's talk about some of the issues that occurred for the Postal series. Continuing on from Postal 3, during its development, Running with Scissors made a deal with the game's Russian publisher Akela, who at the time was known as EA's Russia, and for some time things looked like they were going great. There was some early gameplay footage released, and the series fanbase was fairly pleased that was being shown. Then the financial crisis struck back in 2008, and Akela took a massive hit, and because of that hit, made several poor business choices that eventually ended up sinking them. The biggest offense, however, was firing their development A-team, leaving all future work on the new Postal entirely on the studio's B-team, only for them to be also fired as well for having an inferior product. This would continue on until the game was left in the hands of the studio's D-team. Yep, D-team. A, B, C, D. What were they thinking? Akela was sinking fast, so they released a very broken, practically unfinished product to the public in hopes to save their ship. It didn't. That, along with the refusal to release the game's source code to Running with Scissors so they could at least try and salvage the game, led to the studio's demise, and Running with Scissors' decision to remove the game completely from their stores and pick up the pieces. But Postal 3 isn't the only game of the series to see its set of issues. Even during the initial release of Postal 1, the game saw a lawsuit from the United States Postal Service for the game's use of the word postal in the game title. The lawsuit carried on for a whole 6 years and also became an issue during Postal 2's initial release, but the US Department of Commerce had dismissed the trademark trial with extreme prejudice, and that was mostly it for Postal 1's troubles, but Postal 2 made that all look like child's play. It found itself banned in New Zealand for gross aberrant content, and anyone caught with a copy of the game could face a fine of up to the equivalent of $2,000 USD. It gets worse. Anyone caught selling the game could be fined up to $20,000 and imprisoned for up to an entire year. Not only that, by 2017, the game found itself banned in an additional 4 countries, those being Malaysia, Australia, Germany, and Sweden. Although I couldn't find any information regarding the punishments like I could for New Zealand's laws for the other countries. The world keeps on trying to knock our friend Postal down, but like the dude himself, it gets up every time. Now, before I end this video, I feel like I have to speak about the current beta for Postal 4 now available on Steam. While the game at its current state is very bare, and from what I've played, the game shows great promise, and I look forward to what's to come for the rest of the series. Alright viewer, that's going to do it. I want to thank you for joining me today on today's episode of Behind the Thing. If you liked the video, click the corresponding button down below. If you want to see more content, please subscribe. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, leave it down in the comments down below. There's also a link to my Twitter in the description. You can follow that for any and all future updates about the channel, and I hope you have a great day.
Goodbye.